Hi, my name is Ken Hasselson. I wrote the Microbiome Prescription website and been doing it for almost 10 years now. Um, just as a quick FYI as to my background, my background is not in medicine or the microbiome. It is something called operations research, which is the application of statistics and mathematical methods to real-world problems in any field. Was very successful in World War II for finding submarines and a whole bunch of other things. So it's a bunch of sciences which tends to require people to think a little bit outside the usual box in order to work. It's looking at a problem and dissecting it into a dozen different possibilities and then exploring each possibility one by one and usually coming up with a interesting novel solution because of the breadth of exploration of the issues and the digging down in each one, which is combined with solid mathematics behind the scenes to actually work things out. I had a note from a reader, which is what is coming here. I'm actually responding more to him, but other people I figure would be interested too, which is he had actually 6 questions, so I'm going to answer those 6 questions. The first thing is his comment, that system works great, which is a system of microbiome prescription. Now the question is this just a single oddball person in isolation, or is that the general consensus? Well, actually, there's an easy way, being statistician of course, to determine it. And when we take a look at new people who have uploaded samples in the last year, we got 489, and we also got 335 people doing repeat samples in the last year. This implies about 69% repeat rate, which is for such a project or such an offering, it's actually very high. It indicates that people are happy. They pay, in this case, Biomicide to do the test, got the suggestions from Microbiome Prescription, tried them, found there were progress, so they went back and did another test, and then asked for more suggestions to further improve themselves. So the fact that the system works great in terms of one person's opinion probably is correct for at least 69% of the people. It works great. And then there are people who wait longer or people who are happy with the results and do not bother getting another microbiome test. So basically, his opinion is pretty good. So we have the questions here, and rather than reading through them, let's just hop down to look at the answers. Can you explain the main differences between the old UI and the new UI? Sometimes it doesn't seem to match up well. I'm not sure which one I should use. Actually, probably use both. And why? Because I acknowledge I do not know what the correct way of doing it is. Um, each way appears to work well for some people, very well for some people, but not for everyone. So, borrowing something from Operation Research called the Monte Carlo model, which is you go and you build a whole set of different models of how to make suggestions, and you get all those results, and you combine them into one report and then look at what everybody agrees about. And what everybody agrees about is probably your absolute safest and most correct things to do. That approach is also used for things like climate change. You will see that there are a ton of different forecasts, and then they do a aggregation of them using the Monte Carlo model to get the most probable climate change forecast. So it's the same concept, which is what we are doing is we are acknowledging and accepting we don't know the answer, and rather than spending time trying to find the answer, we say we don't know the answer, and we try finding reasonable ways of getting answers, realizing that they may not be absolutely correct, but when we do enough of them in parallel, aggregate them, we should get pretty good results, which is what the system seems to be able to do. Um, Generally, what happens is, as I, from research from statistics, find more ways of getting significance or different ways of thinking about the problem because we deal with statistics and there are many ways of approaching of data and statistics. There are many statistical methods. So when a method seems to have good results, I then incorporate that into a suggestion engine and add it to it. In general, I do not remove the old suggestion engine. Why? Well, when I did a few years back, I got a ton of emails saying it just is disappeared because people want to use what they've tried before. So I keep all the old methods, and you can take as many or as few as you want and aggregate them together. The more the merrier, and probably the more accurate the consensus is going to be. So that's basically it. Suggestion, use both and work with the consensus. Nice and simple. I don't know what the answer is, and the consensus gives you the most probable answer for what will help. Next question is a simple one. I want to understand symptom section better. I did look very different between UTL. Yes, and that comes from the fact that there are many ways of taking a statistics set and breaking it apart. For example, you could compare averages and say, oh, people with this symptoms, averages are higher here and lower here. Or you can use a median, which is a different statistical measure. Or you can do chi-square for frequency, as in, oh, if you have this symptom, you have this bacteria, the chance of having this bacteria is 25%. If you don't have this symptom, the chance of seeing it is 5%, which means we can use that 25 or 5%. So, if you have it, then you got 5 times the odds of having it than somebody who doesn't have it. So there are a whole ton of different methods of finding statistical significance between the symptoms and the bacteria. And basically, since I don't know which way is the best, and probably no way is the best, that's a philosophical concept. There are many ways which are valid, which gives good results, sometimes better for certain symptoms and worse for other symptoms. So basically everything is there. And I give you a smorgasbord. What you expect from somebody with Scandinavian ancestry, but a smorgasbord. Okay, so basically more and more ways of trying to predict disease. Now, here's a gotcha. When I get time, I'm planning to do a regression cross-validation study, which is I'm going to take every single methodology, check the prediction, and then see how well each method, which method performs clearly best, or which methods, so maybe more than one, of against the samples. And it's what's called cross-validation method, which is you go and you take 90% of the samples, you calculate your forecast engine, and then you see how well it performs on the 10% of samples you do not make use of. So it's a statistical method. It's time consuming. I have to do a bunch of coding, programming in order to get set up to do it. And it's on my backlog. But that's how we'll eventually probably reduce the number of forecasting methods for symptoms down. The purpose of the forecasting methods for symptoms is very simple. If we can correctly forecast, then we know which bacteria are the key players and thereby which bacteria are the ones you want to focus on. Key thing is we want to use a forecaster, which we want to validate to ensure that we are identifying the correct bacteria, which want to be the focus of where we get suggestions on. If a bacteria has no influence on a symptom, we really don't care what value at. It could be 99%, it could be 1%. We really don't care what the numbers are because it has no connection to a symptom. We want to be focused on the symptoms the person is dealing with. Okay, well, the person was happy enough that they're conscripting friends to both get the test, in this case from my own side, and use my combined conscription. And the question he raised is one has more significance than the other one, and where should it go? Well, basically, the best ways are two two phases. One is you go and mark all the symptoms or forecasts that you have, and also go over and try to add symptoms we don't have. Sometimes the forecast is not happening because we don't have enough data. So by adding all the symptoms, we can do more analysis, and then just go and get suggestions from there. Simple as that. That is the new UI. Is the simplest way, and it was there. Now you can go and you can, especially if you go down below, or actually you can do that, then you can go and add more things into your basket of suggestions from things which I'll come to shortly. But the second way is using information from the Kyoto Encyclopedia of Vegan Genomics, and that is looking for compounds and for enzymes which you are high in or low in. Now, what's the difference between the two? The key difference between the two is very simple. The first one is based on published studies where somebody has looked at a particular probiotic and see what changes. Okay, there may have been two studies, they may have been using very small sample size, so they only find one or two changes, not much. So the result is largely we may not have enough information to make good predictions from it. The We are very dependent on people having done studies and published results, and that is a dependency which has problems with it because certain things are popular. I was looking through a number of studies on H. pylori or Candidus, and the number of repeated studies which are saying the same thing, which was studied time and time and time and time again for the last 20 years. I say, excuse me, we already know that. Why are you repeating the study endlessly? And then other things which you find one study only on a particular bacteria, which means that ability to know how to handle it is greatly diminished. When one goes to the Kyoto, the cake data, what we're doing is that we're looking at the probable RNA and DNA in your microbiome as a whole and attempt to calculate surpluses or deficiencies in enzymes and compounds being produced. For example, excess methane, excess hydrogen sulfide. And what we are doing is then we go over and look at bioactive agents, i.e. probiotics, which will consume what you have a surplus of or produce what you have a deficiency of. So the result is you now get a list of probiotics. You don't get a list of any other type of substances, just strictly probiotics. The two of them are similar, are very different, but generally they tend to have the same results. The main difference is that the probiotics being generated there may be on the same list up above, but the catch is that the priorities may be different. And why would which one is a better priority? I generally feel the bottom one is a better priority because it's working with a more complete set of data. The top suffer from data deficiency and data sparseness. This one is pretty rich and we have far more data and it's probably a better ranking for what should be the highest priority. Okay, the person uses the full consensus report, which is awesome. I like that. And the question is, what more can you do? Well, if you do a simple UI, get the consensus, and then you go over to the old UI, change your microbiome, suggestions for building general suggestions. You will see things at the bottom. And these four things I would suggest adding in. There may be more in the list there. They're not in the original list, and again, from experience, I try not to change things once something goes out because I'm going to get lots of emails griping about any change I make. So new things or improved things are put over here and just go and try them and add them in and see if it increases the concentration of particular suggestions. The next part of the question is what's the difference between symptoms and medical conditions in the database? Very simple. medical conditions are coming from published studies showing a particular shift for a condition. Now we have two, probably three problems with that. The first problem is every study is probably done with different lab and lab processing, and as we longtime readers know, the taxonomy nightmare between Christmas is the same samples processed a different way will get different bacteria being high and different bacteria being low. In other words, it is fuzzy whether or not these are actually going to be high using biomicide, using ombre, using and somebody else's study. Most of them done with 16S, which has a great variety, great variance in disagreements from one lab to the other because of the pipeline. So that is the problem. Second thing is most of the studies are done with relatively small sample size. For example, 20 or 30 people. And that means is the ability to detect things statistically is very, very diminished. So you don't get a rich collection of bacteria. You may just get just two bacteria or one bacteria being shifted with that sparseness of data, that small sample size. Statistician said no, very well. The bigger your population, the more accurate you're going to be able to get, the more things you can discover. And that is the reality. And most of the studies are small sizes because they are cheap to do. And unfortunately, because most of the time people doing them are going off the old Statistics 101 class, which assumes everything is a normal distribution, which now makes the ability to detect things greatly diminished when you are assuming everything is a Gaussian or normal distribution and using mean and standard deviation to detect differences. So problem there. So that's the problem with the medical condition. Now, when we go over to internally computed symptom association, we have a bigger sample size. We've basically, for biomicide, we have 3,600 or more samples, and that grows by 2 or 3 every day. So sample size keeps growing. So we have almost 20 times more samples to work from to find associations. So we get more data, more associations. More importantly, everybody in the sample is using the same identical lab, which means that the bacteria which is believed, which has been named by the lab to be there, is consistent across your sample versus everybody else's sample. Big ring. We don't have the uncertainty of the nightmare before Christmas. We have certainty of being able to assign a particular name to the bacteria and to work from that. Whether that bacteria is correctly named, I don't know. I really don't care because there's too much fuzziness in there. We simply assume it is and then work with that in terms of the suggestions. Although with the suggestion we do some inference to neighboring siblings or parents' children, which generally should have a reasonably good hit rate. So basically, if your symptom or condition is not on the symptom list, which probably is because we don't have enough data left from people uploading data and annotating those particular self-reporting symptoms, which is the difference. One case, the people being dealt with generally have gone through extensive testing to make sure they absolutely conform to a particular diagnosis. Symptoms are working off self-declared. Okay, the catch is you come in and what you may find is that you don't meet any of the formal definitions, so you have a problem. As in none of the whether or not you conform to the Rome definition of IBS, you probably don't know. You probably don't, but we do have information about IBS. The second way is self-declare. Okay, you lack accuracy, but you gain in volume, and whatever you self-declared is what we work from. Sometimes you're going to be dead on hit to what other people who self-declare. Other times it will not be. So that's it. Generally, medical conditions is used as a fallback if we don't have any data coming out of our statistical analysis. And that is because that is the best that we have available. We try to do the best that we can with the absence of data, massive absence of data all over the place, and we try our best to try working around the problem of not having enough data. Last thing was I would love to see the workflow. Okay, here's the workflow, or in short, sample is uploaded, and we the first branch is we go with the labs high and lows, reverse rate. And here's the list of all the labs which we do that method. And why? Because we don't have generally a wide range of bacteria being reported, and we often don't have enough sample to do statistics. So, plus the fact that I expect a lot of transcription errors. If we're asking people to put in numbers accurately to 3 or 5 decimal places for 133 bacteria, it's ceased being friendly. To look at it and say, oh, the lab marked this as being high or marked this as being low. Okay, nice, easy entry, and you only put in what you need to. Going the other way, we have to enter all 133 data, and just simply, I do not view that as a friendly approach and not going to be used much. Okay, so that's the GI map, etc. Next one is sample comes in and no information is provided. Then we calculate it based on population computed ranges. For example, box plot, count of Molotov, etc. And we get suggestions. Alternatively, you come in and you indicate certain medical conditions. Now, it will only work using the same set of criteria, or just subset of it, because generally for medical conditions, I think I drop it to over 85% under 15% based on the studies, and that has a long story of explanations behind that. But basically, we only use bacteria where you are matching what has been reported by studies and working from there. The last one is we use those which are significant, and we only use bacteria matching where you have a match to the pattern. So we get a whole bunch of different possibilities. You can do these three ones on a bottom side sample, and then a suggestion set. And then we have the aggregation, and we get the consensus as a result there. So that's basically it. That answers the questions, and it shows you a bit about the methodology. Key thing is we don't know. I accept it. I'm not uncomfortable with it. Being trained in probability and statistics, I'm accustomed to probability, so everything is just probable. It's just probable that the sun will come up tomorrow. And so I work with probabilities all the time. I think in terms of probability. I don't think of, okay, there must be an answer. There must be a way which is best. No, that is a philosophical, ideological aspect, and I simply don't, I've never accepted that approach. I always look at possibilities. Only case where we have absolute is in mathematics, and then we have it only as far as whatever our axiom or statement of beliefs are, and we can work from there logically. But we also know that there are uncertainty there, and we see that also in physics, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So basically, I work with uncertainty, and the result is I go and calculate multiple things, and then I use the Monte Carlo model or general consensus to bring all the possible ways of approaching the problem into one set and giving us some suggestions based on that, which, as I said above, tends to work pretty well. Okay, that's it. Ciao.